Numbers 9 and 10 deal with direct variation. Reading number 9, it says the variables x and y vary directly, and y equals -7 when x equals 14. Write an equation that relates the variables. Anytime you see this word directly, like varies directly, you need to write this down. Write y equals ax. That's what I always write whenever I see this, because when you read these words varies directly, it seems so intimidating. So I just want you to write this equation so that you just realize, we've got this simple format for our equation. We know that to write an equation, we do want to have an x and a y in the equation. So what we need to figure out is we need to figure out what a is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write y equals ax here. I'm going to replace the y with the y value and replace the x with the x value so that I can figure out what a needs to be. So the y is -7, a is here, x is 14. So when I replace it, you can see that if I divide by 14 on both sides, that I will get the a value. -7 over 14 reduces to -1/2. So the a value is -1/2. Now a lot of people, when they get this far, they think, all right, they box it, they feel like they're done. But they're not done because the answer is an equation. And we need to write an equation, and we need to have a y and an x in it. So we need to write y equals -1/2 x. This is the equation that we need that relates these variables, these x and y. So that's the answer for number 9. Another thing that you can think about, if you look at this y equals ax, I just want to show you something, and it may or may not be helpful for you, but y equals ax. So if you wanted to see what a is in terms of x and y, if we divide by x, you see that y over x is a. And you know how slope is like change in y over change in x? A is sort of like your slope. And if you wanted to figure out your slope, you can always just divide the y by the x, and you will get the a value. But that only works for direct variation. But it does seem helpful for some people sometimes when they have trouble with this problem. For number 10, it's direct variation as well, but what makes this problem difficult for people is that it's not an x and a y that we're talking about. In this problem, we're talking about the amount a spring will stretch. So the amount a spring will stretch varies directly with the force attached to the spring. Remember that in the previous problem they said y varies directly with x. So in this situation, s, the stretch of the spring, is like my y, it's my dependent. The stretch of the spring depends on how heavy the weight is that we attach to it. Notice that they have a little hint here, write a direct variation equation and solve. So that hopefully you're realizing that we need, the format to be like y equals ax. And in this situation, since we know that the stretch varies directly, the y is the s, the stretch, and then a times the force applied to the weight. So now I'm just going to figure out what a is. If a spring stretches 7 inches, so that's the stretch, we want to know what a is, with a force of 50 pounds attached. So if we attach 50 pounds, the spring stretches 7 inches. We're going to figure out what a is by dividing by 50. You can get this as a decimal if you want to. I prefer to leave it as a fraction, and this will not reduce any. So 7 over 50 is the a value. So my equation that I'm going to have, I'm going to say s for the spring, the stretch s, and they already identified it as that, so we're going to use s for the stretch. 7 over 50 times f. This is my equation, so this is part of the answer, but not the whole answer. And the reason that it's not the whole answer is if you read the rest of the question, it says, how far will it stretch with 40 pounds attached? So this is the first part because it says in this parentheses here, it says write a direct variation equation and solve. So here's my direct variation equation, and now I'm going to solve it. So the stretch is 7 over 50 times the force, and here the force is 40 pounds. So we need to plug in 40 for x. 7 times 40 divided by 50 is 5.6. So S is 5.6. Since this is the stretch, that is in inches. If you see from the problem, it said inches for the stretch. So this is the second part of the answer. So we needed the equation, and then we needed the, with 40 pounds attached, what was the stretch?